Hello, it's Kate from Open Door Counsel and Life Coaching. Today is Winning Wednesday, and one way that we can win at life is to evaluate our thinking. What? Yeah, evaluate our thinking. You guys, we all get trapped in patterns of thinking, okay? And if we grew up in a home that wasn't rosy and lovely, a lot of us have adapted and adopted in some thinking errors. Okay, we're going to go over a couple of those today, and you can just, say, this one's not really me, but these other three, totally me. Okay, and we're going to kind of like point our finger at them. We're going to expose them a little bit, and to bring awareness. So the beginning part of change is self-awareness. So we're going to bring awareness to these things. And if it's something that you're like, you know what, I really do have a couple of these thinking errors, I'd like to grow in this area, you could definitely reach out to me anytime. I'd be happy to help you, happy to talk with you and work you through some of these things. So we're just going to go through a few of them. Some of the thinking errors include overgeneralization. Okay, this is when you single out one bad experience and you assume it to be an endless pattern. So like, for example, you have a very bad experience dating a guy. And so then from then on, you're like, every guy is crap. Overgeneralization. Do I admit to having this overgeneralization in that particular example, a part of my life? Yes, I do. I've had many bad experiences with men, and I was like, that's it, fine. They're all crap. But I know they're not. So I'm sorry, men, don't be offended. Overgeneralization, when you single out one bad experience and you assume it to be an endless pattern. Another thinking error is called mental filtering. Mental filtering. It's when you focus on one negative so much that you forget about all of the positives. This is really easy to do when you have a kid in school who has A's and one F. It's like you focus on that F. That's the one thing that you see, and that's what you're talking about. You forget about those positives. You forget about all those other A's. Mental filtering is when you focus on one negative so much, you forget about those other positives. Do you do that? Do you mental filter? Another thinking error is called jumping to conclusions. It's when you interpret things when there are no facts to support them. Oh my gosh, does everyone do this? Actually, I know a few people who really do this when they interpret the things with no facts to support them. Jumping to conclusions. Don't we do that sometimes? Another thinking error is called emotional reasoning, is when you assume your distress reflects the way things really are. Is when you assume your distress reflects the way things really are. You guys, we are a little mouse in a little maze, going and doing life and only making the turns we think we should make, when really, none of us really know what we're doing, do we? And then we assume that our distress is just the way things really are. When maybe there's sunshine and beautiful clouds and rosy things around, and all we see is, and we're going through the thistles and we think the whole world is full of thistles. No. But our emotional distress, the distress, we think that's just, it reflects the way things really are. Remember, I loved when I flew in an airplane and I got to go above the clouds. I was like, oh, it's always sunny above the clouds. So when it's cloudy on Earth, I'm always like, the sun is still shining above the clouds. This is just how it is right now. It helps me in my emotional reasoning. Another thinking error is black and white thinking. In thinking in extremes. Have you heard of that before? It's either black or white. Things are either right or wrong. There's no gray area in between. And for our Enneagram 1s joining us, definitely that's how you feel. It's like, hey, there's a right and a wrong. And there's a da-da-da-da. But if you've lived any hot minute on the earth, there's so much gray area. There's so much complexity to the world. And I'm not saying there's not right and wrong. Okay, I'm not saying that when it comes to certain things. But a lot of the world is gray. And so we want to get away from black and white thinking. And also, lastly, called should statements. Somebody said once, don't should all over yourselves. Don't should all over yourselves. Should statements are personal statements about yourself. I should be good at this, right? I should be married by the time I'm 25. I should have a beautiful house by the time I'm 40. I should do this. I should do that. Do you guys do that? Have you ever done that? I totally have done this. They reflect how we think things should be rather than just accepting it how they are in reality. And when we have those, it really pulls away any contentment that we would feel. We should all over ourselves. And remember, any thought can actually be made up of more than one thinking error. Now, that's kind of terrifying. Like, how messed up are our brains? Are our minds? Are the patterns that we have adapted and adopted along the way of our life? A way to win at life is to face these thinking errors and say, hey, I recognize myself in this black and white thinking, or I recognize myself in jumping to conclusions. I want to do some work for myself in my own head and in my own mouth and in my own heart, so I don't jump to conclusions, so I don't make these shit statements or have this black and white thinking. So the questions to ask yourself are, am I making some of these thinking errors? And if so, which ones, right? And what are the arguments for and against my thoughts? Like, do you struggle? Like, but this, you're so pulled in one direction, but really it's this, I am, these jumping to conclusions, but really, it's kind of obvious. But really, are you taking it as it is? Or are you just jumping to the conclusions, right? What are the arguments that go on in there? And are there alternative thoughts or explanations for what I'm thinking? Are there alternative thoughts or explanations for what I'm thinking? It's almost like you have to separate yourself a little bit and just kind of stand back and try to be more objective about yourself or the way that you think versus subjective, which can be a little hard. And sometimes you need a little help of somebody like me outside of your head to help you see that and to help you recognize that. So thinking errors, overgeneralization, mental filtering, jumping to conclusions, emotional reasoning, black and white thinking, and should statements. Do you have any thinking errors? If so, which ones? I'm Kate from Counsel and Life Coaching, and that's your Winning Wednesday.